of the accident is that I ruptured my spleen, so I had to keep getting vaccinations for pneumococcal pneumonia, but that's about it. So it's all good. Life is wonderful.
Life is wonderful. And it's Friday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to let Frank in. We are now recording. Robert will not be able to join us today because his mother is turning 80 today. So he went to celebrate his mom's 80th birthday. He's traveling right now, but I'm sure he'll catch the recording and see everybody who joined. Dr. Annika, it's lovely to see you again from your office and not from a selfie in the train.
Yep.
Running around town.
It's easier to sit here and be in the call.
I can imagine. Welcome, Don Carter, Dr. Troy Hall. I'm not sure if you would like to introduce yourselves. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, well, hello. Thank you very much for making this possible. And I'm sorry I didn't get to join earlier with your times. It just conflicted with other appointments I had. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today and to see how I'll be able to fit into the group and what we're talking about.
Awesome, thank you. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? Sorry, Don, give us just a sec.
Sure. So I think the way I like to always start, I always like to start with something called connections before content. So I'll just kind of share with you that I have married my high school sweetheart in 1977. We have 2 children, 6 grandchildren. We live on an island in South Carolina, and we're building a multi-generational house so that our daughter, husband, and 4 children will live with us. And so we've designed it, and we hope to move into it in October. Aside from that, listen, if you really want to know more about me, let's look on LinkedIn, and we can get connected that way, and it'll work out great.
Good deal.
Awesome, thank you very much. Okay,
oh, hey, I'm Don. Hey, by the way, your cat back there is so cool.
Yeah.
Her tail was wagging, and I thought it was one of them old clocks, you know.
This is Maya. I introduced you all to Maya. Today she's not camera shy. She wanted to meet all of you. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's cute. Look at there.
Come on, let's go. Okay, she's gone.
That's cute. Hey, I'm Don. I'm here with Steve Hebeson, Steve Lee, Steve Vick. I'm the only one not named Steve. Sharon and the whole team. And you guys are amazing. So far, this has been the easiest onboarding I've ever seen. I mean, this is cool. So I'm excited about being here.
Glad to have you here. Thank you
and
for
every day
joining
is a good
us.
That's right. And Bill, every day is a good day. I had a motorcycle wreck in 17 that gave me, I'm a little bit vain. So it always tells me God has a sense of humor. Instead of having a scar nowhere you can see it, it's on top of my head. So it's like, oh, well. And but God's good, I tell you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So today's meeting is going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about outreach that we've been doing, and then we're going to give Rob Salafia the microphone, and he's going to be talking about leadership plus business development mindset. So that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. What we wanted to talk about a little bit is the outreach that we've been doing. So we've started, we're piloting a whole other area of outreach. And Robert will be giving more details ahead, but he has been working with some members. I believe Bill, Frank, Sherry, Sandra, he's been working with them with this pilot. And it's for each of our active members. So if any of you that haven't received an email from Robert would like to participate, please let me know, and we'll get you all together and started with that. Bill, would you like to add a little bit about that, about what you've been doing with Robert?
Yeah, so for those of you who are new, I'm one of the senior members. I'm also probably the oldest member of Elevate at this point, but we've tried, you know, when Robert started, this was a pure startup, and this was a pure startup with just trying different things, and some things have worked and some things have not worked. We've tried to give away webinars, and that does not work. There's a gazillion of those things out there for free. So what we've tried to do recently is to use LinkedIn in a couple of different ways. One of them is actually not just LinkedIn, but another service Robert came across where he can find the actual email addresses of executives in certain areas. So I said, Robert, look, I'm in Northern Colorado. Here's a half a dozen companies I want you to just try to send emails for under my heading. And so I will just tell you that it was crickets, to use a term that Robert didn't understand. By the way, we have to understand that Robert is a Brit, so he doesn't get all this stuff, you know. Anyway, so that didn't work. So what we're trying now is a LinkedIn campaign that is where the Elevate member and other people have something in common. And so the campaign that just launched an hour or so ago, or a couple of hours ago, is the LinkedIn campaign for executives who've got the Marine Corps in their background. So I'm a Vietnam veteran from the Marine Corps, and when you go onto LinkedIn, you can find people that in their job description, which in the Marine Corps was a real job, you know that they spent time in the Marine Corps. So we've just sent out a series of direct messages, not emails, but direct messages to a handful of executives. And I've just basically said, look, I've invested in this company. It is very eclectic. We do a lot of different things. We tackle problems that are not the easy problems. And then I just close it off with Semper Fi. And anybody who's been in the Marine Corps knows that that's the code. We know each other. We're brothers, or we're brother and sister. And so that one is, we just started that one, and I'll know in the next few days as to whether or not I'm getting responses, because people on LinkedIn are saying, oh, this guy has now got something in common with me. So it's part of the whole issue of you buy from people that you know and you understand. And we're looking for ways that we can connect with people directly and say, we have something in common. I know that I'm pretty sure, Victoria, that Robert is doing pretty much the same thing with Sherry Wynn. Because of her Olympic background, she can find executives who have got athletics in their background, female executives primarily. So that's the current experiment that we're trying. I've spent, oh my God, a whole bunch of years doing professional services, selling and consulting and things such as that. And the point of trying to find new people is just really difficult. So the latest one is LinkedIn, have something in common with the people, and let's see if it clicks. Does that do
Hey,
it?
Bill.
Yo.
Bill, this is Rob. I'd like to piggyback on what you just talked about, and could be an interesting segue into the business development mindset. But I'm totally with you on this. And let me give you two stories that illustrate it very clearly. When I wrote my book 3.5 years ago, the fall of 2018, I reached out to my alma mater, Clarke University in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I got the editor, publisher of the alumni magazine on the phone. And I pitched him, can I get an article on my book in your magazine? So number one is, don't be shy. You have to know what you want and ask for what you want. He said, absolutely. We're just about to put it to press, but I have a small section. Send me something. We iterated on the content, dropped it in. It's a really nice little feature. And 2 weeks later, I got an email from this woman from a very large retailer, global retail retailer that really liked my content. She was also an alumni of of the university. We had a conversation almost immediately, and I can't tell you, it was the lowest. There was no resistance on this call at all.
Yeah.
We had this shared experience, and Clarke they used to call it the Clarke mystique. It has a little bit of a mystique to it, which was really cool. And so I didn't have to sell. All I had to do was connect with her, ask her what was important to her, just, really explore what her needs were. But it started, Troy, what you say, connection before content, always connected personally, and then took it to the next step. I was trying to get her to come to an open enrollment program that she was really excited about. This was for the IT strata across their whole organization, the VP level of IT leaders. I couldn't get her, she couldn't make any of the dates that I had on the books. She said, well, this was in May. And she said, why don't we just wait till September? And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to wait till September for this. It's like, that'll be over. And I said, listen, you get 10 people, get 10 leaders together, and I'll deliver a 2-day program for you. She said, really? We had that scheduled within 2 weeks. 3 weeks later, I had 10 people in the room. They came in skeptics, they left believers. And I ended up in the next year and a half it was a quarter of my business for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So that affinity, that sense of connection is really important. And so Bill, just to build on one more story, is I was a presenter at this conference called Hacking HR. I don't know if any of you know about it. I told Robert about this as well, both these stories. And this is a weird experience because I was presenting into a void. In other words, I was just speaking into my camera. I couldn't see anybody. Even if there was anyone on the session, it was 15-minute TED style, straight into the camera, like a keynote presentation. And come to find out, there were about 200 people on the call, but I couldn't get any information about those people. I couldn't get any information about anyone. There was 550, I think, speakers on this presentation, on this week of presentations. So I put my team together to get all of those names, get their email addresses, as many as we could, and I sent them a direct message through LinkedIn that said, we were both speakers on Hacking HR. And I said, I don't know about you, but it was a really weird experience. I'd be curious to hear what your experience was. And by the way, and I gave them a link to the recording. If you want to watch my session, here it is. I got over 100 people responded to that. I ended up with about 4 calls. And one of those calls ended up, and it's just about to close on a piece of business, which is an executive coaching in the range of $25,000. So I'll stop. Bill, you're right on the mark with, I call it affinity marketing. It really does work.
Got it. Okay, Victoria, over to you. Or back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that was all that I have to say and all that we had to present regarding the outreach. I could give it back to Rob so he can start with his topic today, if that's okay, Rob.
That's fine. Thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Bill. Does anyone have any thoughts or feedback or on the affinity marketing or the effort that Bill is doing with Robert? Feel free to unmute. We can just have an open conversation. I'm not here to teach at all. I'm here to open up a conversation about what it takes to develop business and develop a business development mindset.
Or you can leave your comments in the chat box. I'm reading right here. Diane has sent her LinkedIn. She'll be leaving at 10:30. No problem, Diane. Thank you very much for being here. Tony, she says that she can't find you. No,
Troy.
it's not Tony, it's Troy. I'm sorry. Yes, Troy. So if you could please leave your LinkedIn here in the chat box. Everybody's very interested.
So again, open conversation if you want. But the prior to owning my own company, when I started out in my career, actually, I should say that I was a performing artist. And the first 15 years of my career, I started out as a street performer, stage and theater performer, an accomplished tap dancer, rope and wire walker, storyteller. And I always had a gift for, I guess, sales, but never had an opportunity to really put it to use like really effectively. So as I transitioned out of my role as a performing artist, I found my way into an organization, a training company, a boutique training company that used theater methodology to teach storytelling, executive presence, leadership coaching. And so it was a really good fit, number one. And there are a few things that I ended up becoming their top sales executive for 12 years straight. And I didn't follow any prescription in terms of sales process. I think there's a plus and a negative on that. It was all relationship-based sales. And there was a couple of principles that seemed to work. And I think, Bill, what you talked about this affinity, it's always trying to find commonality with whomever it is that you're looking to build rapport with and eventual turn into a customer. And the work actually that I've been doing I'm an executive coach at MIT Sloan School of Management as well. We talk a lot about this balance between the things that you have in common, which make things go much easier with someone or groups, or things that leaning into difference. And it's important to understand that both are really important, especially when you don't necessarily click with someone. How do you find that click? If you're looking for efficiency and connection, building that immediate connection works really well. If you're looking for innovation, if you're looking for new ideas, leaning into difference is really important. But being able to establish some sort of common ground or understanding or getting each other is what I strive for when I build client relationships. And the image that I give folks when I work with, let's say, sales teams is early sales folks tend to work a lot on their presentation and what it is that they're there to talk about. And that's an early trap for a lot of folks, especially if you're doing a presentation, going in and it's like, oh, and if the client says, tell me about what you do, you launch into your presentation, they're quiet, and all you're doing is talking. A good example of this, of shifting, of bringing a more consulting mindset to sales is really important. In other words, get out of your boat. I needed to learn how to get out of my boat and get into the boat of the customers that I was speaking to, the person I was speaking to. Here's an example. I had a meeting with Abbott Laboratories, and I brought, it was in person, it was me and the director of design from my company, and we had 3 people that we were meeting with. 2 were in person and 1 was on the phone. And the woman that was on the phone on the squawk box, before we had video, was really the leader. And she said, why don't you, tell us about what you do? And I paused and I said, rather than tell us about us tell you what we do. What if we actually went around the room and did what we normally teach? And we said, tell us who you are, what the role that you play is in the organization, and what's the lens through which you're looking at our content. Because if you do that, then we're able to better to tailor our message to you. So the woman on the phone she said, okay, who she was, and we said, what percentage present are you right now? What's keeping you from being here 100% present? That's a kind of an emotional intelligence check-in. We would always do that with them. So they enjoyed that. And then she said, I'm looking at your content from a curriculum perspective. I want to see if we have anything within our curriculum already set up, and if it's repetitious. They're great. The other person across the table said, his name, what percentage present he was, what's keeping him from being 100% present. And he said, I run all of I lead all of the managers, the training managers and the trainers within our organization. I want to see if what you're offering, we could actually train our folks in that could teach it internally. Great. And the person next to me was he was the HR business partner. HR business partner is the individual that sits in the line of business and has really a connection to what that business is doing, and also looks at the individual development and the development of teams. And he said, I want to see if this is appropriate content for the people that I'm facing off with, specifically the executives. So right there, they gave us the information that we needed when we presented the information to say to the woman on the phone, by the way, we've also worked with another company, was American Express, on their core 6 competencies of leadership, and we were fit within the core curriculum on these 2 topics. So she was able to get an idea of that. We were able to talk to the person with who was leading the trainers, to say, all of our facilitators have a background in business, in theater, and in facilitation, and business acumen. So it's that they were able to see, that person was able to see that from a pedagogical perspective, his trainers that didn't have the acting background, so might not be effective in delivering this material. And then always with an eye to the other person, that the HR business partner, it was really important for him to know how what we teach, the experience that we give in the classroom, but then also how these leaders could make use of it in their day-to-day activities. That was one of the best sales calls I ever made, because of the way we were able to structure it. Question, thoughts, insights in terms of your experience in terms of sales calls, or in terms of opening up a conversation, or what it means to get into the boat of someone else, to really ask them, where are they going and what's getting in the way of them getting there? Yeah, Bill.
So let me just jump in. It's not always just sales. A number of years ago, I was in an organization and we were on the verge of losing a multi-million-dollar contract. And it was not my project, thank God. So the general manager said, can you fly down to St. Louis? This was for Boeing, actually, and see what we can do to save this thing. And I flew down there and I simply said, tell me about what we've done wrong. And I shut up. And after half an hour, the fellow that I was talking to said, okay, we're going to continue on. I said, why? He says, you're the only person that listened to me. Everybody else wanted to talk. And so the whole time was I just shut up and listened. So sometimes the best thing to do is let the client tell you what's on their mind. That's my 2 cents.
And I want to build on that, Bill, because one of the best skill sets you just described it, is called shut up and listen. But then after they talk, to be able to, I call it mindful listening, to say, "Oh, let me see if I have this correct. What I think I'm hearing you say is," and then paraphrase your understanding of what the person just said. And then ask for that validation. Did I get that right? Did I not get it right? And then ask a deepening question. It's the power of questions, the power of getting in that other person's boat. You can use it, they feel seen and heard. And like you said, most people just come in and just say, here's what we can do for you. As opposed to saying, wow, that's a really difficult problem. I can see where you're going, what you want, what's getting in the way. I wonder, and then you open up your bag of whatever it is that you're carrying in, saying, would this be helpful? And then as an offer to someone. It's a very powerful thing. Here's another story that brings a business development mindset to life. I'm working with a digital transformation company, and it was all on client relationships and story development. But he said, I'm in the basement of the client's building. I'm working with a colleague, and we're working on one piece of a very large project, digital transformation project. There's another vendor that has the majority of the work, but we're working on this one specific piece. We were happy for the work. It was good work. As we're working on the terminals, I see something, a discrepancy that I have a question about. And it's a pretty big discrepancy, but it's not in the area of our work. It's in the area of this other vendor's work. So I turn to my colleague and I say, do you see what I'm seeing? She goes, yeah, I actually saw the same thing at the same time. What do you think we should do? Well, we have to let our client know. We have to let Joe know this is going on. So without trying to take over that other person's business, he said, Joe, we saw something, we need to talk quickly. Got on the phone with him and said, I know this isn't our area, but we wanted to let you know that it's something that's really important that you need to bring up with your vendor, the other vendor, and have them pay attention to, because that's, it's going to make a big difference. It might be a pitfall that, and it might come back to hurt you if you don't pay attention to it right away. The client, so what is this in the area of? Think beyond your task. You're always looking for opportunities to add value. And if your client relationship, if you put the client first and you're offering something to them, in this case, what ended up happening was the client was so impressed that this digital transformation person, my client, would come to him and offer something that wasn't even within his bandwidth just because he cared. He wanted to make sure that client knew that this was an issue. He ended up winning the whole piece of business because he demonstrated that sense of caring, that sense of attention to detail. So it's really the quality, it's the attitude, it's not just day labor. And that was one of the values that this organization brought to their clients, which was we're in it for the long run. We want you to be successful. We're in your boat. We take the oars out of your hands so that you can sit in the driver's seat. You can sit in that strategic seat. We'll do the rowing for you. Has anyone had any experiences like that at all in terms of business development where we can share additional thoughts like Bill just did of when you took initiative, when you recognized an opportunity and it turned into something significant?
Rob, I think that's a valid point. I mean, you think about just in a personal situation. I've been in sales all my life. I mean, it's crazy, except for a little
Yep.
short time in the Air Force. I mean, this is really all I've ever done. And I remember early on looking at, and by no means an age thing, but looking at the older guys, and I was just so impressed that these guys didn't get rattled when they run into objections and I was really, I mean, I've always been a real student of the craft. I mean, I love sales. I love the process. I love the predictability. And just like you said, it's great to hear that I'm not crazy, because I've always been that connection. How'd you say connection before content? I've never heard
Yeah,
it put
that's
that way,
right.
but that, I mean, I work in finance and in the mortgage industry now, and I'm always like, man, what, I got to cut these interviews a little short. You know, I mean, this is just getting long-winded. But these people really, I think, especially after COVID and all this, they want somebody to talk to. You know, I'm working
That's
from
right.
home. I've been doing that for years, so it's not really a big deal to me. But these cats are running around in their, pajamas on a headset, trying to change the world. You know, and it's really cool. And I think that's something that, like you said, when you win their personal approval, then the professional approval just falls in place. And so that's really good to hear that. That is, it's unique in our
Don,
marketplace.
yeah, I really appreciate that sense of connection. When COVID first hit 2.5 years ago, and all of you have your own experiences, everybody has their experiences. I'm on a call with a leader from that retail company I was with. He was a UK leader. And I said, Don, can you imagine it's like this COVID thing, we're all experiencing the same thing. It's all over the world. He said, yeah, no, not so much. He goes, we're all impacted by it, kind of like boats in a storm, but everyone is in their different boat and everyone is experiencing it a little bit differently. I'm sitting in my house. I can go out on my terrace if something happens, cool off. I can clear the air and come back, get refreshed. A lot of people I work with, a lot of people on my team don't have it that good. You know, they're in their bedrooms 8-10 hours a day staring into a screen. So don't assume that everyone is experiencing the same thing. We're all impacted by it, and it's important to reach out. So what I found, especially when I first started to work remotely, was this: I didn't want to waste anyone's time. So I would just dive into the content right away. And I realized I was missing something. And Troy, you'll appreciate this. I was missing the opportunity to connect. And so I came up with 3 words, or the 3 P's for leading in a virtual or hybrid environment: get present, get personal, get productive. So before you can get productive, and I know you've all experienced it. You go into a meeting, it takes 10 or 15 minutes just to settle into it before you get productive. You can actually advance that pretty quickly. So I mentioned this before, that what percentage present are you? What's keeping you from being here 100% present is a great way to get people in the room with you. And here's an example. I'm on another call. I have 4 people, 4 squares on the screen. And this one fellow, Red, says, I want to let you know, I'm sitting here with my dog. She's sitting right next to me on the floor. We almost had to take her to the hospital this morning. So in case you see me looking down like this, I'm looking at her to see if she's okay, because at any minute, I might have to leave and take her to the hospital. So think about it for a moment. If he didn't say that, and he started going like this, going down like this, okay, what are you thinking? What's he looking at? What's more important? What's going on? Right, Don? It's this, right? This, right? Right? Exactly, Bill. But because he said it, he engaged our empathy. Like, he pulled us into his story, because this is a screen. It's like this, right? If I were to show you what's just on the other side of the screen, is I have lighting, I have junk that's all over the floor. This is all you see. So he he exercised empathy, and then we're all in it with him. We would say, Reg, how's the dog? How are you doing? Because we engaged that connection, the next 90 minutes was amazing. Everyone was in the room with us, 100% present, or as much as you can be, fully engaged in the conversation because it mattered to them. Anyone
Rob,
else have experience? Yeah.
Don would like for you to give a definition of present. What would present be for you?
That's great. Don, thanks. So for me, presence has two elements. It's how people show up, the impact that they have on the environment and the people around them. And this has two sides of it. One is an internal self-awareness, and the other is the external self-awareness. The internal self-awareness is your values, your motivations, sense of meaning and purpose in your life, understanding your journey, transitions in your life, all of those things that make up who you are on the inside. The external is the impact that we have on others. And I look at it in three levels, like layers of experience. It's how people experience you. It's how they experience themselves when they're with you. It's the story they tell about you after you've left the room. So if you think about how many ways, my background in theater kind of brings this to life. How many ways can people experience you? They can experience you energetically, physically, vocally, emotionally, relationally, intellectually. So the first four are the areas I like to work in because those are things that you can improve. Your what's on your face, the message you're sending without saying a word. And so I worked with one person I coach. He's a physician, one of the Boston hospitals. He's an MIT EMBA student. And the thing that we worked on was, say, he's a really great, authentic guy, creates great teams, but he has this habit of when something happens that he's disappointed, he goes, oh. And the impact that this has on the other person is like, oh, I disappointed him again. So people come to him and they don't want to disappoint him. So that's the message it's sending. We worked at saying, is that the message you want to be sending? So I'll give you one more example, Don, about the executive presence. So as a performing artist, I used to be really open and engaged with when I'm working with my audience. When I went into sales, or I was on, as sales executive, I was a grinder. So I took myself and my work really seriously. And so when I had to go out of my office to go to the printer, I'd still wear this face. I didn't realize I was making myself more important, other people less important, and that I was a bit of a jerk. It wasn't until someone said to me, do you know you're wearing this face? I had no idea. And she gave me a quote from theater. She said, from Tom Stoppard, she said, see every exit as an entrance to someplace else. So I wasn't so much leaving my office as much I was walking into the common space. How did I want to walk into that space? How did I want others to feel? What was the environment? How did I want to influence the environment? I went to work really hard at making sure that transition, that's what I call one of the transitions we have to master, is going from one space to another space. And it was great when I got feedback again that said I was much more approachable. I was less like this driving to the, in a less intense, let's say. Thoughts, Don?
that's good.
Dr.
Like
Troy,
that.
do you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Victoria. So, Rob, some of the things that you mentioned just called me to just offer some sort of a technique that has worked for me, and that is similar to when you first asked me to tell me about myself, and I wanted to connect you with me personally, right? as opposed to what I did professionally, because oftentimes you can read that. So sometimes when meeting with clients for the first time, or meeting with a group of individuals that I know I may have some continued work with, one of the questions I ask is, sometimes when they say, well, tell me something about you, I go, well, you know, the first thing I'd like to know is, I want you to tell me something about you that's not on your resume. And it really is amazing how you can get people to connect with very simple of things, and then it gives you something to respond to. So an individual might say, well, I have twins in my family. I go, oh, really? Boys, girls, what are, you know, and all of a sudden you're now connecting people. And when I've done this in a larger group, I've had people who've worked together for a number of years who have told me later, I found out more about these people in this one session than I did the whole time I've worked with them. So
I've had the
that's
same
why,
experience, Troy. It's great.
yeah, and that's why I really like to reinforce that, you know, making that connection. And, you know, any of us who've ever been to a sales course will know that rapport is the first stage of any sales program. You always are creating that rapport, that relationship. You know, people buy from an individual because of who they are, not always because of what they're representing or selling. And for me, in my business, in consulting and professional and executive coaching, individuals are buying me. They don't care what company it is that I'm working for. When I connect with them, it's all about, am I the right fit? Am I the right connection? So I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of that. And no matter how hungry we are for the business, it's always important to take that step back and make sure that we're connecting with the individual. The second thing I would add to, when you talked about the various ways that people can connect with you, I think about it from this perspective, and that is, we learn in, potentially we've got 8 different learning styles that may be available, but these first 4 really become the most important. And that is, we learn verbally. And so when you talked about your face and your reaction, you know, so we're seeing things that happen. Listen, that expression that a picture is worth 1,000 words is proven in research, that we will remember more and we can gain more from a photo than we can by adding the words to it. And then we have our auditory, which we're listening and hearing for that. And then we have the tactile experience, which is where we can touch and feel that. And then the greatest of those is when we can combine experiential learning together, so that our opportunity for what we're doing is involving many senses at one time, in helping us to establish not only the relationship with individuals, but also with our connectivity, whether we're on the screen in what I refer to as our flat Stanleys, or whether we happen to be face-to-face in person and doing some connections that way. So those were a couple of the comments I wanted to add to what you said, and thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Oh, it's great. Great, Troy. The experiential learning, we get into our bodies, just and out of our heads. It's the somatic nature of learning is really important. So I really appreciate, it sounds like a very similar approach to the work that I've been doing for years, and was trained in. So Don, to continue with presence, it's how you show up, the impact that you have on others, and how people, there's a great quote from a friend of mine who's a faculty at HBS, Harvard Business School. He said, leadership is about how someone else experiences themselves in your presence. When I first heard him say that, I was just like, wow, is that good? Yes.
Michelle, would you like to add something?
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, and
Go
first,
ahead.
I'm sorry, I would have put that little hand, but I don't know where to find it. Is it on the icon?
That's okay, Michelle.
No
Michelle,
problem.
if you could, I forgot your name, but if you could put your name in the.
Yeah, well, Michelle's okay, and you can even call me as one. And if it's not okay, you can call me Susan. I don't mind. Okay, I just first, I love this part of the conversation. I love it. Thank you for your comments, everyone. I think it adds, I agree 100% with what you said, but I'd love to add my 2 cents on that. From different perspective, from a martial artist and a therapist too, in terms of presence, I'd like to maybe add, if it makes a sense, whatever. Who you are, super important. The impact you have on the other one also. The other ones themselves too. But there's this dynamic of all of them together. And I will take a martial arts story. Just at first, when you're a beginner, if you're doing your stuff with the katana, you've got your katana, the katana of your opponent and the opponent. And then when you get a little bit further, you've got you and your katana are one, and your opponent and its katana is the other thing. And then when you're a master, there's just one thing. The entire presence of everything. And let's not forget the environment. And I'll take you, Rob, as a former performer. Let's imagine that you are the same, you're Rob. You've got the same audience, but instead of playing in a theater, you're in an outdoor venue. It changes the kind of presence you need to have, because you need to take the environment into consideration. And if you're performing one night and the other night you're performing after 9/11, something changed. It's in the environment, and you've got to be aware of that and influence the presence that you should have. So
Brilliant.
this is, sorry, I couldn't help but.
No, but yeah, I really love this. I've been studying Tai Chi and Qigong exercises since I was 17. And this idea of building a sense of internal, just that internal sense, grounded sense, and then being able to expand that into the space. I was a street performer the first part of my performing career. And I would look at, in Boston, I would look at these performers that could have 300 people around them and effortlessly hold their attention. And I would try and have 17 people around me, and then the wind would go and they'd be gone. And I go, how do they do that? Early on in my career there, I realized I had this need to have people to pay attention. I would almost like I was cajoling them to be, and the audience, it was very uncomfortable for them. And then I learned that it's not about me, it's about the audience. And I had to become interested in them and learn how to let go of this need, whatever that is. And so further on in my career, like a few years later, I had 300 people around me. And the program was going well. I was reaching down to pick up my hat, and I literally felt something fall away. It was that need to be liked. It was that need to have people pay attention. And I did nothing. It's like this thing fell away. And I looked up, and everyone was still there. And then this 2-year-old little girl with a pink princess dress on and a balloon that was tied to her wrist started to walk out into the middle of the circle. And I looked around. No one was paying attention to me anymore. They were all focused in on her. And if I was early in my career, earlier green, I would try and wrestle that attention back. I went, no, don't. It's like everything was happening in that moment. Like you said, it was all happening. And so my job was to make sure that I gave her that moment and return her to her parents. So I walked up to her very slowly. I went like this to the audience. I lifted one arm up, each of her arms, and I went, ta-da! Everyone gave her a nice big applause. In that applause, I turned her, returned her to her parents, and then re-engaged. And what I found was I felt this deep sense of appreciation from the audience for the care that I took, that it was one of the best shows because it was, as you said, it was this whole thing happening at one time.
Now, you know, Rob, from theater, you never work with children or animals because they always upstage you. You know that, right?
Well, I had a routine. It was all audience participation, and it was a routine that I would have people with kazoos doing the Peter Gunn theme, and I would get them marching along, and then I would take myself out of the equation and put myself into the audience, and they would just be performing by themselves. And I could do that. I knew something was really going well. And so it's a sense of real connection. Michelle.
Well, just thank you so much, because this example of this little girl coming in, it's more than knowing yourself and knowing your audience. It's being present to what was going on and adapting to it. To me, that's the mastery of presence, just to add to whatever you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is good. Oh,
Yeah,
a
beautiful
quick
stuff.
note, not trying to still martial arts. Real quick, ladies, do not throw a rock at me. Third wife, she is one of only 2 female black belts in Louisiana in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I have martial arts is a great example of, I don't train, but martial arts, but they just practice the same things until perfection. And then when that situation pops up, then they know what to do. They have leverage basically. And it's all about leverage and technique. Wow, that's sales. That's what we do.
Same
We
thing.
practice continually on the same stuff. I mean, I still hear the same objections I heard back when I was 18 years old. And
That's right.
thankfully I've got a little better at it, you know, but going into it, I do a lot of recruiting, and going into it with new people, it's refreshing, but it's scary because I have a point of reference for, they just left a job, quote unquote, to start a business, you know. So it's pretty cool, but believing in that system and having those guidelines in place, I mean, this just falls right into it. I mean, connect before content. I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My mother used to say that the highest form of flattery is imitation, so I'll take it.
You know, one more thing, because I know we're coming right at the end. And I don't know if you've read. I'm happy to send the first chapter of my book to all of you. That I talk about the apprentice style of learning. There's in tap dancing and theater and a lot of these skills that I learned. This apprentice mode is really powerful. Novice, apprentice, journeyman, master. And the novice is the most difficult because that's when you're just entering in. It's so easy to bounce out when it doesn't land. When the apprenticeship is really when you go, you have you really know what you want, you fully commit to learning, and you get into the tool shed and you become familiar with the application of all of these skill sets, you know, whether it's listening skills or responding skills or whatever it is. Journeyman is when you're putting it into practice. Mastery just happens. It's not something that you can, it's like you said, Don, it's just after repetition, and all of a sudden something happens and you're attuned to, your body is tuned into your environment. And I think, Michelle, what you're talking about as well.
Okay.
I know we're kind of like,
Before-
we're going all around here, but a delightful conversation. And I hope there was some value here.
Yes, there definitely was. Thank you very much, Rob, for your help with this session today. And thanks everybody for joining in on the conversation and participating. I think it went very, very well. This is all what our Friday workshops are all about. Expanding your network, generating conversation. Last week we had the amazing Anna Nordengren with Mindful Productivity for Busy Leaders. She gave us 7 techniques to tap into our best productive mode. So if you'd like, you can watch the replay. You can join us if you're available next week. We're going to have another member, Stephanie Olson. She couldn't join us today, but she's going to be talking about working out of trauma and helping others. So this is what our Friday strategies are all about. If you would like to participate as well, give a 20-minute session on a topic of your expertise, just let me know, email me. And no, thank you very much for joining us today. Please remember to work on your listings, on your profile. The best if they're the best way possible. It really helps us with all of our outreach and all of our work generating traffic to the site. Remember, if you invest time and effort in your listings and your profile, it's easier for us to invest in you for our Google Ads campaigns. And finally, before everybody leaves, we're doing a weekly workshop regarding Elevate 3.0, where I give you a tour around all of the site. I answer your questions. I give you tips and tricks. So you're all welcome to join along. I send the invite at the beginning of each week. So it would be lovely to have you there, and it would be
Thanks.
lovely to
Thanks,
have
Victoria.
you on Friday, next Friday as well. So have everybody a great weekend, and thank you very much once again.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.